Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another episode of Spoiler Sunday. So this is the time of the week where I take a look at all of the cards that we got released in Japan, and, well, talk about them. So we finally know what the rest of EX03 has to offer, and it's going to be a nice small batch of cards this time, but we got some really exciting things to be talking about. So diving right in, we have a new version of Flairismon as the first spoiler. So Flairismon was traditionally a black Digimon, now he's making the color shift to red, and the Flairismon is going to be playing around with the whole dragon sub-theme, which I guess is what the whole set is trying to do, but he has a nice when attacking ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck and add 1 card with dragon in one of its traits from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is just your stereotypical digger, except the big difference between this and a lot of other diggers is this is on a when attacking ability as a level 3, where most of the time when we've seen this type of ability, it's an on-play ability. But I think that just goes into the strength of what Dorbickmon is trying to do, being a relatively aggressive Digimon, utilizing a whole bunch of different dragons. And I don't necessarily think that deck needs to rely super heavily on trying to climb up the stages more than just finding its parts and pieces because of the Digicross ability. Next up, we have a new version of Flairismon. So Flairismon is another card to try to play around with the whole Dorbickmon deck. It's still going to be a red level 4 Digimon. Stats aren't anything too special, but it does have a nice inheritable ability when we are going to be digivolving up, where when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has dragon in one of its traits, then we get to draw a card. So this is just a really good card to use in combination with Dorbickmon, so that way when our Dorbickmon is going to be swinging, we get to draw 1 card, but this could be used in a wide variety of other decks too, like we saw with the Hina deck. Next up, we have a new version of Flairismon. So this new version of Flairismon, stat-wise, isn't doing anything too special. He evos for 4 off of a level 5 blue or green Digimon, and is a blue level 6 Digimon with 12,000 DP and a play cost of 12. So we've seen the stat line on so many other megas, but what's really good about him is he actually has an alternative when digivolving condition, where we could digivolve him for 3 on top of a Wingdramon or a Grounddramon. So if we're using him in the Examon deck, because the Examon deck is trying to play around with the new Wingdramon and Grounddramon, then he's actually going to be cheaper, making him more efficient to use. Then on top of that, he has a nice All-Turns ability, where once per turn, when this Digimon is suspended, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon. So this is a good ability to use offensively and defensively. So offensively, you're going to use him to swing into the opponent's Digimon or their security, and then he gets to unsuspend himself to either keep himself unsuspended, to use as a nice defensive tool or a secondary resource for our Examon, or we could use him to just swing again and get an extra attack in. Then he has a nice secondary ability where at the start of the opponent's main phase, by suspending one of your Digimon with a Dramon or Examon in its name, so either literally this card or Examon or Breakerdramon, then your opponent must attack with one of their Digimon, forcing them to attack and trying to line up some easy blocks, so that way we could try to force the opponent's Digimon to attack into, hopefully, our big blockers to be able to delete the Digimon, and then as a reward, with let's just say Flairismon, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon. So that's kind of the whole push and pull dynamic on wanting to suspend your Digimon for various benefits, and your Digimon have the ability to unsuspend themselves, so that way we could take full advantage of what we can do with our cards. Then its inheritable ability is basically the same as its secondary main, where at the start of your opponent's main, by suspending one of your Digimon with Dramon or Examon in its name, then your opponent must attack with one of their Digimon, making him just a really good card to utilize in what the Examon deck seems to be trying to do based on the parts and pieces that we could pull together. Next up, we have a new version of Cordramon. So this version of Cordramon still is going to be a level 4 blue Digimon. Stats aren't anything too special, but he can also evo for 3 on top of a level 3 blue Digimon, or 3 on top of a level 3 green Digimon, or 2 on top of a card with Dracomon in its name. So we do have a couple of Dracomons that we could already play around with, namely from EX03 and the All-Force Wingdramon starter deck. Then this Digimon also has a new keyword for us to be playing around with in the form of Evade. So Evade is the ability where when this Digimon would be deleted, by suspending this Digimon, we could prevent that deletion. So it's just built-in protection, which is really, really good, so that way we could try to keep our cards around as often as we possibly can, because there is just a lot of removal in the game right now. Then, on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability where during all turns, while this Digimon has Dramon or Examon in its name, then it gains Evade, so it just allows us to be able to have really sticky bodies and try to keep our Digimon around as much as we possibly can. So we could even use Flairismon in combination with Evade to be able to unsuspend itself during the opponent's turn if the opponent is trying to delete it through an option of some sorts. Next up, we have a new version of Wingdramon. So this version of Wingdramon is still going to be a blue level 5 Digimon. He could evo for 4 on top of a level 4 blue or green Digimon, or he could digivolve for 3 on top of a Cordramon, which is your usual amount and the intended way the card wants to be played. Then, like Cordramon, he has the built-in evade mechanic, so that way we could try to keep him around as often as we possibly can, and he also has a nice secondary ability where during your turn, Examon in your hand may treat this Digimon for its DNA Digivolution as if it was a level 6 Digimon to be able to make going into our Examon a little bit easier. Then his third ability plays into his second ability, where at the end of your turn, we may DNA this Digimon and one of our other Digimon with Dramon in its name, by paying that Digimon's DNA Digivolution cost from our hand. So it just allows us to easily go into our Examon off of either our level 6s or now with our level 5s. Then on top of all of that, he has the nice inheritable ability for us to take advantage of, where during all turns, while this Digimon has Dramon or Examon in its name, then it gains Evade, so it's just more ways to be able to protect our larger Digimon. Next up, we have a new option in the form of Avalons Gate. So this seems to want to be played with Examon because, well, the Examon deck from what we pieced together is going to be blue-green, similar to Imperial Dramon. But what this card is doing is we get to activate one of the following effects, and if we have a Digimon with Examon in play, then we get to activate all of the effects instead. So if we're just using this generically in any blue-green deck, like Imperial Dramon, then we either get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon and one of our Digimon gains Piercing for the turn, which is actually pretty good with Imperial Dramon Fighter mode. But we also have the option to unsuspend one of our Digimon, and obviously if we're playing this directly with Examon, then we get both effects to make it the most out of our Examon. Then it has the security ability where it's actually acting as some defense, where we get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon and unsuspend one of our Digimon, so again, we could try to take full advantage of all of their abilities, while trying to shut off some of the opponent's aggression all at the same time. And then the last card that we got spoiled is going to be the main man himself, the last secret rare of the set, Examon. So we finally got Examon in the game, and with that we now have at least one copy of all of the Royal Knights. So that's pretty cool, and Examon is actually looking to be a really strong card based on everything that we saw before on how we could utilize him. So just going over his stats, he is a blue-green level 7 Digimon. He could Digivolve for 5 off of a level 6 blue or green Digimon. He has a play cost of 15 and 15,000 DP, so stat-wise, you're average level 7. But he also has an alternative Digivolution condition, where we could DNA Digivolve him off of a green level 6 and a blue level 6 Digimon, which we know based on the Grounddramon and Wingdramon, we could actually use them as the cost for the level 6s to be able to use them off of level 5s. So he has more ways to DNA than a lot of other DNA-based decks, which is really beneficial on easily getting out a big body. Then he has a nice when Digivolving ability for, when we actually go up into him, where we get to place one blue or green Digimon with Dramon in its name from our hand to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source, and if this card DNA Digivolved, then we also get to place one blue or green Digimon with Dramon in its name with 12,000 DP or less from our hand for free. So literally, he's just increasing the amount of inheritables that he has, which we do have some pretty decent inheritable abilities for him to be playing around with, on top of the fact that he has the potential to spawn literally a free level 6, on top of it being able to DNA, is just super powerful to be be able to line up specific synergies. And then he has the nice ability where during all turns, when this Digimon is suspended, we get to unsuspend it and suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down. So it's basically doing the same thing as Flairismon, just a little bit better, considering we also want to try to attack into the opponent's Digimon as well. But yeah, that's just kind of all that we got in EX3, and I think EX3 compared to all of the other EX sets is taking things a little bit more in the right direction. So as far as all of the new decks that we're going to be able to make out of this set is going to be the Examon deck. We have the Hina deck that's going to be playing around with Metallic Dramon and Volcanic Dramon. We have a new Imperial Dramon deck to be playing around with as well. Then we have Trials of the Four Great Dragons. And as far as interesting decks that we could use and iterate on that we had previous parts for, we kind of had a lot of stuff that we could use to try to make a Dorbickmon deck out of. And we even have a lot of different parts and pieces for the Agisdramon deck as well, because both of those are interacting more with just different subtypes to help make that deck even more playable. So the Plesiomon/Agisdramon deck is trying to split apart your inheritable sources, which is what Waymon was trying to do back in BT7, so it's just playing around with that, while Dorbickmon is just playing around with different dragons as a whole, acting kind of similar to how Megidramon wants to be played. Then, speaking of Megidramon, we have a new Chaosdramon to basically replace the old Chaosdramon for that Megidramon deck, and more cards to be playing around with for it to make it a little bit stronger, and Megidramon is that type of a deck where it just will always get some little support here and there, keeping itself semi-relevant. And as I stated before, Dorbickmon is kind of playing into that same style of design as the EX1 Megidramon, so as long as we get more dragons and dinosaurs, then Dorbickmon is always going to be getting some support indirectly. Then, as far as updating and iterating some existing decks, we have more D-Brigades to be playing with to flesh out the D-Brigade deck even more, which they haven't had a huge meaningful update since BT5, so they're more than due. And the Bloomlord deck gets Hydramon as a good sub-theme to try to dip its toes into. So I'm really excited as a whole on how people are going to take to the set, and I'm really excited and looking forward for the set when the English format gets it sometime in the winter. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.